The courthouse on Jefferson Street was old, too old. Its walls smelled of varnish, damp paper, and something else Elena Price could never quite name, something like secrets. Courtroom 9B was supposed to be like any other courtroom in the state, overworked, understaffed, and tired. But that gray Thursday morning, as sunlight struggled through the dirty windows, something about it felt heavier. Elena adjusted her blazer, brushing away the fatigue from another sleepless night. On the docket in front of her glared the name People vs. Mason Ward. It was a routine case, nothing special. Petty theft, repeat offender, a name lost in the system. Still, the moment Mason shuffled into the room in his faded orange jumpsuit, wrists bound, her instincts stirred. He looked older than his 35 years, thin, pale, eyes sunken deep into his face, but behind that exhaustion was something else. Fear. A quiet, pleading kind of fear that made Elena's gut tighten. Judge Kellerman cleared his throat, his tone sharp and commanding. "Ms. Price, are we ready to proceed?" "Yes, Your Honor," she said, forcing a smile. But before she could continue, Mason spoke. His voice cracked, trembling with desperation. "I didn't steal nothin'. Not this time. I already did my time for something I didn't do, and it's still followin' me." The courtroom murmured. The judge's gavel slammed down. "Mr. Ward, this isn't the time for speeches. Sit down." Elena glanced at her client. He looked defeated, but his eyes, those haunted eyes, told her there was more to his story. After court adjourned, she found him in the holding area. The concrete walls echoed with the distant clang of metal doors. "What did you mean back there?" she asked softly. "You said you did time for something you didn't do." Mason looked up, his expression hollow. 15 years ago. Armed robbery. They said I confessed. Played a tape in court. But I never said those words. It wasn't me talkin'. She frowned. "You're saying your confession was fake?" "Yeah," he whispered. "They said the file got burned in some storage fire. I told everyone, but nobody cared." That night, long after the courthouse emptied, Elena sat in her office surrounded by stacks of old case files. Rain pattered softly against the window. She typed Mason's case number into the State Archive database. The system lagged, then pulled up a corrupted folder. Most documents were unreadable, except for one, confession_2009.wave. Her heart pounded as she clicked play. A man's voice filled the room, calm and steady, confessing to the crime word for word. But something felt wrong. The rhythm was off. The speech repeated certain phrases unnaturally, as if stitched together. Elena checked the metadata. Created, 2010. Modified, 2021. Why would a 15-year-old file be edited just 4 years ago? Her eyes drifted to the prosecutor's name on the original case, Peter Kellerman, now Judge Kellerman. She exhaled slowly. No way. The next morning, Elena met with Jordan Ricks, an old friend and cyber forensics expert. He loaded the file into his software, the screen filling with sound waves. "You're right to be suspicious," he said after a few minutes. "This isn't a clean recording. It's been synthetically altered, early AI voice generation. Someone built this confession." Elena's stomach turned. "A deepfake?" "Exactly. One of the earliest I've ever seen," Jordan replied grimly. "Someone with access to advanced tech back then. Probably someone inside." That evening, Elena filed a motion to reopen Mason's case. Within hours, her inbox flooded with strange emails, anonymous threats and cryptic warnings. "Drop it. You don't know what you're touching." Then came one that stopped her cold. No subject line, no sender. Just a zip file named courtroom_files_restricted.zip and a single sentence, "He's not the only one." She hesitated, then opened it. 15 folders appeared on her screen. Each one was a criminal case from between 2008 and 2013. Every single one had been prosecuted by Kellerman. Every single one contained an altered confession file. Her hands went cold. 15 years. Dozens of convictions. All built on faked evidence. By dawn, she knew what she had to do. She printed every file, locked them in a folder, and drove to the courthouse. But as she entered courtroom 9B, something was wrong. The air felt still. No clerks. No bailiff. The judge's bench sat empty under flickering lights. On the desk lay a folded note with her name on it. Her pulse quickened as she opened it. You shouldn't have opened those files. This court changes lives, but not in the way you think. The truth doesn't live here anymore. The silence was suffocating. Then, behind her, the heavy doors creaked open. She turned, and froze. Mason Ward stood there, still in his orange jumpsuit, flanked by two deputies she didn't recognize. His face was blank, his eyes distant, almost mechanical. One of the deputies stepped forward and handed her a small USB drive. "This," he said flatly, "is what you've been looking for." "What is it?" she whispered. Before he could answer, the lights flickered, then cut out completely. Darkness swallowed the room. A voice, low and distorted, echoed through the speakers. "You think you found the truth, Ms. Price. But you've only uncovered the first layer." The monitors behind the judge's bench flickered on, showing rows of mugshots, dozens of faces, all labeled convicted via audio evidence. Beneath them flashed one phrase in blood-red letters. Project Gavel. The lights snapped back on. The room was empty. The deputies were gone. Mason was gone. Only the USB remained in her shaking hand. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "We need to talk. I worked on Project Gavel. They used our tech to create the confessions. Kellerman wasn't the mastermind. Someone higher. Someone still on the bench." Attached were GPS coordinates, to an abandoned courthouse 2 hours north. Elena stared at the message, heart racing. She looked around the courtroom one last time, the same courtroom that had built a legacy on lies. Then she tucked the USB into her pocket and walked out, rain slicing across her face as thunder rolled above the city. Because now she knew the truth, this wasn't about one corrupted judge. It was a system, a machine designed to rewrite justice itself. And whoever had built Project Gavel wasn't done. The rain hadn't stopped since morning. It came down in sheets that blurred the road ahead as Elena Price drove through the twisting backroads leading north. The USB drive lay in the passenger seat, a silent weight that seemed to hum with danger. She couldn't stop thinking about that last message, the one that had sent her here. Someone higher. Someone still on the bench. The coordinates led her to an abandoned courthouse, its windows shattered, ivy crawling up its stone walls. The sign above the rusted double doors read County Court, District 4, the letters faded with time. Elena hesitated before stepping out. The air was cold, sharp with the scent of wet earth and old metal. As she pushed open the door, the hinges groaned like a warning. Inside, the hallways were dark, lined with peeling paint and broken glass. The echoes of her footsteps felt too loud, too alone. A voice drifted from the old courtroom at the end of the corridor. "You came." She froze. A man stood in the dim light filtering through the cracked ceiling, tall, older, with thinning gray hair and tired eyes. His face looked familiar, though she couldn't place it at first. Then it clicked. She had seen him years ago in law school lectures and televised hearings. Justice Harold Vance, a respected state Supreme Court judge. Elena's heart hammered. "You're the one who sent the message." He nodded slowly. "Yes. I helped build what you found, Project Gavel. I didn't know what they would use it for." Elena took a step forward. "You created those fake confessions. Vance sighed, his shoulders sinking. Not me. The technology came from a defense research grant back in 2007. It was supposed to be an experimental tool, an audio simulation program for undercover training. But someone saw potential in it. They refined it, hid it, and used it for something else entirely. She frowned. To convict people. To control conviction rates, he said darkly. To shape public trust in the justice system. Kellerman. JJ was the front man, ambitious, charismatic, desperate for promotion. But the real architect was sitting on the state's Judicial Oversight Committee. Elena's mind reeled. Who? Before Vance could answer, a deafening crack split the air. The back window shattered. He staggered forward, clutching his shoulder. Get down, he gasped. Elena dropped behind a broken pew as another shot rang out. A bullet tore through the wood beside her. Somewhere outside, an engine roared to life. She crawled to Vance, who was slumped against the wall, blood spreading across his jacket. Who's doing this? She demanded. He struggled to speak, his voice trembling. The file, on the drive, it's encrypted. Inside is everything, names, accounts, the link to the committee. Find the password in the file marked V01. It's not a name. It's a date. Vance, what date? She cried. He exhaled sharply. The day Justice died. Then his eyes went still. The sound of tires screeching echoed outside. Whoever had fired the shots was gone. Elena sat frozen for a moment, the silence pressing in on her. Then she grabbed the USB from her pocket and bolted for the exit. By nightfall, she was back in her apartment. Her hands shook as she inserted the USB into her laptop. A folder appeared, Project Gavel/V01. Inside were dozens of subfiles, case logs, payment trails, audio banks, judicial names. But each one was encrypted, sealed behind a password prompt. The day Justice died, she muttered. She scrolled through the attached notes until one caught her eye, a court memo dated 15 years earlier, June 19, 2010, fire destroys downtown records archive. She typed it in, 06192010. The files opened. On her screen appeared spreadsheets, voice samples, and payment transfers to offshore accounts. Each transaction was tagged with a judge's initials. Her eyes froze on one line. Transfer approved by Chief Justice R. Kane, Oversight Committee lead. Her breath hitched. Chief Justice Richard Kane, one of the most powerful judicial figures in the country. He had presided over hundreds of cases, always preaching ethics, always on television defending the integrity of the courts. He was the architect. Before she could process it, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. You shouldn't have unlocked it. She backed away from her laptop, heart pounding. Her building lights flickered. Outside, a black car idled across the street. Moments later, her front door creaked open. Ms. Price, a voice called softly. Elena grabbed her phone and ducked behind her desk. But the voice wasn't threatening, it was calm, almost gentle. I'm not here to hurt you. A woman stepped into the light, tall, composed, wearing a gray suit with a badge clipped to her belt, OIA, Office of Internal Affairs. My name is Agent Vera Lowell, she said. We've been watching Project Gavel for years. You just exposed the final link. Elena exhaled shakily. Then help me. Kane's behind this. He's been controlling convictions for years. Lowell nodded. We know. But we needed proof from inside. You just gave it to us. The agent stepped forward, retrieving the USB. We'll take it from here. Stay quiet, stay hidden. This will go to the Attorney General by morning. But as she turned toward the door, Elena noticed something, the faint flicker of a light beneath the agent's sleeve. A tiny red dot. A recording device. Her gut twisted. You're wearing a wire. Lowell smiled faintly. Not exactly. Before Elena could react, the agent pressed a button on her wristband. Her phone buzzed. The same message appeared again on the screen, this time tagged with Lowell's location. You shouldn't have unlocked it. The air grew cold. Lowell turned back to her. You were never supposed to see that file, Ms. Price. Project Gavel doesn't end with Kane. He was just the face. We're all part of it. Elena's mind spun. You're with them? Lowell tilted her head slightly. No. I am them. The room erupted in white light. Elena covered her face as a deafening pulse filled her ears. When she opened her eyes again, the agent was gone, and so was the USB. Her laptop screen was blank, its hard drive wiped clean. She staggered back, shaking, staring at the emptiness where evidence once lived. The rain outside had stopped, but thunder still rumbled in the distance. The next morning, headlines broke across every network. Judge Peter Kellerman found dead in apparent suicide. Chief Justice Kane resigns amid health scandal. There was no mention of Project Gavel. No mention of the deep fakes, the corruption, or the years of stolen lives. The truth had vanished again, buried beneath the same system that had created it. The courtroom fell silent as the final piece of evidence slid across the table, a single file that proved everything Evelyn had been fighting for. 15 years of deception unraveled in a matter of minutes. The names once untouchable now trembled under the weight of exposed truth. But justice came with a cost. Behind every victory, there's a wound that doesn't heal. As Evelyn walked out of the courthouse, the flashing cameras caught her face, calm, steady, but changed forever. Because uncovering the truth doesn't always set you free. Sometimes, it chains you to the very darkness you exposed. If this story gripped you, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more real stories that prove one thing: truth always finds its way out. R.